The level of stupid that I just had to resist me to sit down, grovel on my knees and be like, I'm so sorry, Mr. Yamato.
So Pirate Software basically wrecked his own reputation, disappeared for a bit, then popped back up like everyone on the internet had the memory of a goldfish. The wild part is that his return didn't fix anything. It actually blew up even worse than before. Instead of rebuilding trust or moving smarter, he walked right back into the same mess and started speedrunning his own downfall again, almost like round 2 of the exact same story, playing out in real time. For a long time, Pirate was the internet's cozy Bob Ross of coding, the calm tech guy people trusted. He talked about game development, dropped coding advice, and told stories about supposedly working at Blizzard for 7 years, while stacking up around 20 years of game dev experience. Millions of people tuned in for the streams and clips because it felt like they were learning from a veteran who knew the industry inside out. The vibe was wholesome, relaxed, and smart, and the audience absolutely ate it up. Then, the cracks started showing. People watched him dip out on teammates during a World of Warcraft raid. Critics began pointing out questionable coding habits that didn't line up with the expert image. On top of that, he pushed heavy criticism toward the Stop Ending Games movement, spreading information many viewers said was flat out wrong. What really rubbed people the wrong way was the attitude that followed. Instead of admitting mistakes, Pirate doubled down again and again, acting like he was never wrong about anything. By the end of 2025, the numbers told the story. His viewership dropped hard, like a major game crashing on launch day. The hype was gone. The trust was shaky, and the once massive audience had shrunk fast. Then January 2026 rolled in, and Pirate decided it was time for a comeback arc, a reset, a clean slate. The problem is that nothing about his approach actually changed. Instead of showing growth or reflecting on what went wrong, he jumped straight back into the same patterns that caused the backlash in the first place. The year started with what looked like a public lesson in how not to handle copyright disputes online. It kicked off when Pirate clashed with a small indie developer who had created a simple game demo. What happened next sounded almost unbelievable. Pirate claimed the developer used his voice in the demo without permission. Right away, he fired off a DMCA takedown, and then jumped on stream acting tough about the whole thing. During the stream, he told the developer, "We're going to take you to court. You're going to lose." He also doubled down by saying, "You cannot use somebody's likeness without permission," clearly trying to sound intimidating, while putting the smaller developer on blast in front of his audience.
And you put your mouse inside of MS Paint, and then you hold spacebar, and then you use the arrow keys, you can draw like an Etch-a-Sketch. And people didn't know this. MS Paint is king. MS Paint is my favorite program ever. And all you have to do after is you just take it and you shake it up.
Except there was one huge problem with Pirate's big legal performance. The audio he was complaining about was not even in the public version of the game. Anyone who downloaded the demo could clearly see it, simply was not there. The clip Pirate was angry about existed only in a private development build that the developer used internally, basically a placeholder joke during testing that was never meant for players to hear. That detail matters a lot when you talk about copyright claims. Under the DMCA process, the person filing the complaint is supposed to do a good faith review before sending the takedown. You are expected to actually confirm the content exists and consider fair use before pulling the trigger. From what people could tell, Pirate rushed straight past that step and fired off the claim anyway, going after someone with far less money, far less reach, and way fewer resources to fight back. Things escalated so much that a lawyer stepped in to help the indie developer completely free of charge. Think about how unusual that is. A random lawyer saw the situation unfolding online and basically said, "This did not look fair." So they offered pro bono help to push back against Pirate's legal move and protect the smaller creator from getting steamrolled. In the end, the DMCA claim was withdrawn, but the reaction from Pirate did not calm things down. Instead of admitting the mistake or offering a simple apology, he stood firm and insisted it was not a false claim. He argued that people criticizing him just did not understand copyright law, which only made the situation look worse in the eyes of many viewers. Online reactions turned cold very quickly. Some former supporters started saying things like, "He uses his wealth and platform to bully smaller creators instead of supporting them." That criticism hit especially hard because Pirate had spent years building an image as the helpful, wholesome developer who lifted up indie creators. And believe it or not, that drama was only the beginning. Toward the end of January and moving into early February, Pirate ran Pirate Jam 18, a game jam event that participants later described as one of the most poorly managed popular jams in recent memory.
Not actually do any coding. The code is just visually there on the screen. And 98% of the actual stream is him looking at his subscribers, looking at his tip jar as to how much money people have sent him, and also looking at videos about games, but never actually doing any game development in a dev stream.
The reasons behind that reputation opened the door to another wave of criticism. The reasons people started calling the event a disaster are honestly wild. The first shock came right at the start when Pirate disabled major community features on itch.io. That decision confused a lot of developers, because the whole point of a game jam is interaction. Participants usually play each other's games, leave ratings, write feedback, and help build connections within the dev community. That is normally what makes these events exciting and useful for smaller creators trying to learn and improve. But Pirate shut down the public rating system and comment features completely. Just like that, the core social side of the jam vanished. Without ratings or discussion, there was almost no motivation for developers to explore other entries or support fellow participants. What should have been a lively community event suddenly felt quiet and disconnected. Then came the judging phase, and the complaints got even louder. According to several participants, judges spent extremely short amounts of time reviewing the games. Some developers said their projects were looked at for roughly 5 minutes. Think about that for a moment. These were games people had spent countless hours building during the jam. Meanwhile, the event had more than 400 entries, which meant the judging process moved so fast that many creators felt their work was barely seen. The real controversy exploded during Pirate's live streams, where he showcased his favorite submissions. Viewers quickly noticed a pattern. Some games were rushed through in just a couple minutes before he moved on. Meanwhile, other projects received long play sessions that could stretch close to half an hour. What stood out most was the type of games getting that extra attention. Several viewers noticed he spent more time on projects that included references to his pet ferrets or games that visually resembled his own project, Heartbound. Because of that, many participants started saying the favoritism was painfully obvious. Developers who followed the rules and worked hard felt ignored, while certain entries received spotlight treatment.
We have to file a legal complaint against that dude earlier. So I filed a DMCA claim, and he has now filed a counterclaim against me. We're going to take you to court. You're going to lose. You cannot use somebody's likeness or voice in any way inside of your games without their permission.
When people began posting calm, constructive criticism about the judging and the apparent bias, the situation escalated again. Pirate's moderation team reportedly began removing critical reviews and banning developers from Pirate software spaces simply for questioning the process. So, from the perspective of many participants, the situation looked like this. Developers joined the jam, followed the rules, shared honest feedback about what felt unfair, and ended up permanently banned from the very community they tried to participate in. That outcome left a lot of people stunned. Yeah, that is not exactly how you build goodwill with a community. That is how you earn a reputation for shutting down the moment anyone questions you. Instead of handling criticism calmly, Pirate once again reacted by digging his heels in and refusing to acknowledge any concerns. At this point, many observers were already expecting that reaction, because the pattern had been playing out again and again. The backlash arrived fast. Developers who participated in the jam began speaking openly about their experience, describing the event as messy, poorly organized, and frustrating to be part of. Some creators said the judging process felt rushed and dismissive, especially considering the amount of effort participants had poured into their games during the jam. One developer explained the situation in a way that stuck with a lot of people. They said the judging felt more like a performance than a real evaluation, and that Pirate seemed focused on promoting his own brand rather than truly celebrating indie developers and their projects. That comment started spreading across forums and social media as more participants shared similar stories. But the drama did not stop there. Just when it seemed like Pirate might finally slow down and step back after all the criticism piling up, he jumped directly into another controversy. This time it involved the collapse of a massive MMO project called Ashes of Creation. On February 1st, 2026, the situation around Ashes of Creation exploded into chaos. The Kickstarter-funded MMO had reportedly been in development for around 10 years. Suddenly, the studio behind it collapsed. Reports claimed the entire staff had been laid off, some without receiving final paychecks. The CEO stepped down, and the project looked like it had completely unraveled. Players who had supported the game financially were devastated. Some had spent hundreds of dollars, while others had invested even more, hoping the project would succeed. Across gaming communities, people were demanding answers, asking for refunds, and sharing their experiences after supporting the long development cycle.
As much as you're angry right now, of course I ran.
In the middle of that outrage, Pirate Software stepped in with a very different tone. He began posting online suggesting the situation had been misunderstood and claimed the game had actually been doing fine until very recently. He positioned himself as someone with insider knowledge about the industry and the project itself. To many people watching the situation unfold, those comments felt disconnected from what players and former staff were reporting. Critics said it sounded like Pirate was trying to downplay a situation that had already caused serious frustration and disappointment across the gaming community. The backlash grew even stronger when Pirate kept defending the studio, despite the reports coming out about unpaid employees. For many people watching the situation, that stance felt incredibly tone-deaf. Critics started saying it looked wrong to defend a company accused of not giving workers their final paychecks after a collapse that had already hurt both staff and players. Soon, the accusations shifted toward Pirate himself. Some commenters argued he was inserting himself into a situation that had nothing to do with him personally. Others pointed out what they saw as a huge contradiction. For years, Pirate had criticized major AAA studios for poor communication and lack of transparency with their communities. Now he appeared to be defending a project that many players felt had failed its supporters in a very public way. That contradiction sparked even more speculation online. Some people began wondering whether Pirate had a financial reason to defend Ashes of Creation. He had promoted the project heavily in the past, and reportedly used referral links connected to the game. Those kinds of referral systems sometimes reward promoters when new players join through their codes. Whether that speculation was true or not, the situation still looked bad to a lot of observers. When a game that collected real money from players collapses, and employees reportedly lose their jobs, defending the project too aggressively can easily make it seem like you are picking the wrong side of the argument. Then the controversy took another turn. While the Ashes situation was still unfolding and former staff members were dealing with layoffs, Pirate publicly shared private messages involving one of the studio's community managers, Margaret Crone. Months earlier, she had responded to Pirate after he reported players harassing him in the game. According to the messages, Margaret explained that the moderation team was small and handling a backlog of reports. She also clarified that not every harassment report automatically leads to a permanent ban on the first offense, which is a fairly common moderation approach in online communities.
Make a bad poll, you make a bad call, that's on you.
That is the most arrogant statement on the planet, bro.
However, when Pirate released the conversation publicly, he accused Margaret of mishandling his reports and suggested she had been dishonest. Once people actually read the messages themselves, many said the context looked very different from how Pirate described it. Margaret had been discussing players calling him names and the typical moderation process. Critics argued Pirate framed the conversation as if she had been ignoring far more serious threats, including claims about threats toward LGBTQ players. Because of that difference in framing, some viewers concluded the timeline and context had been presented in a misleading way. The situation drew even more criticism because Margaret had reportedly just lost her job during the studio collapse, and many people felt exposing private messages at that moment only added pressure during an already difficult time. What really shocked people watching this unfold was the timing of it all. While former employees from the collapsed studio were scrambling to figure out their next steps and trying to find new work, Pirate's reaction came across as petty and ego-driven. Instead of showing empathy or stepping back from the spotlight, he kept pushing himself into the center of the discussion, which only made the criticism louder. And the frustrating part for many longtime viewers is that none of this behavior is actually new. The same patterns that caused trouble for him last year showed up all over again. The refusal to admit mistakes, the dismissive tone toward anyone who questioned him, and the constant need to prove he was right no matter what. People who had followed him for years recognized the cycle immediately. What makes it even more surprising is that Pirate had months away from the spotlight. That time could have been used to reflect, slow down, and maybe come back with a different attitude. Some fans even hoped he would return more humble or self-aware. Instead, his comeback looked almost identical to the same controversies that damaged his reputation in the first place. At this point, the internet even came up with a nickname for the situation. Some users started calling him a glorified lolcow, which is a harsh label used online for someone who repeatedly creates drama around themselves without realizing how they look to everyone else. It is brutal language, but it shows just how frustrated parts of the community have become. Every time Pirate jumps online to defend himself or explain his position, critics say it only seems to make things worse. Instead of calming the situation, the responses often spark new arguments and bring more attention to the controversy. If you look at the numbers, the shift is hard to ignore. His YouTube channel once pulled in millions of views on uploads. Now many videos struggle to reach around 5,000 views. On Twitch, where he used to average around 10,000 viewers during streams, the numbers have dropped closer to 3,000 on good days. Reports also suggest his platforms have lost hundreds of thousands of followers over time. Unless Pirate finds a way to recognize the patterns that keep repeating and seriously changes how he handles criticism, many people believe this is not really a comeback story. It may just be the second chapter of a public downfall. And judging by how things have played out so far, some viewers doubt that level of change will happen anytime soon. But now the question goes to you. Do you think Pirate Software can actually recover from all this and rebuild his reputation? Or do you think his time as a respected voice in the gaming community is already over? If you have thoughts on the situation, drop them in the comments. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the BeyondFame channel, and share this video with anyone following the story. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.